this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech doing an Ask Anything today. I'm responding to over 20 questions asked by people on the channel. About half of these are from patrons of the channel, and the other half are taken from the comments to the video celebrating 7,000 subscribers on YouTube. Let's jump right in here. Is Wizards of the Coast getting lazy with keywords? You know what I'm talking about. Megamorph does seem a bit on the lazy side. It reminds me of Mega Man, a wonderful video game that I played as a kid, but could have had a little bit better name to it. Although I think there's a little more going on here. Magic the Gathering is getting really complicated. You take the complete rules and print them, you're at over 207 pages, which brings me to the next question. Are we going to see brought back old mechanics? Yes, we definitely are. I actually think it's better in a lot of cases for Wizards to bring back an old mechanic than add a new mechanic. Every mechanic that you add to the game makes it much more complicated for new players. If you bring back old mechanics, especially popular ones, it really brings people back into the game and keeps the game at the really large rule set it's already at. If you're going to add a new one, it should be extremely good. Now, there's some mechanics that will never come back. Phasing, gone. Happy to see it gone. Rules nightmare. Cumulative upkeep. Everybody hates this mechanic. We will never see it again. In fact, we are seeing very few things happen in upkeep. I think Wizards would get rid of upkeep if they had the option, but it's already part of the game. So for our next question, we've got two questions here put together, one from a patron and one from the comments. But it's asking about the design space. What is the most broad open section or area for design that Wizards hasn't approached yet? And are we running out of fresh ideas? Are we seeing these flashback or older mechanics because there isn't enough design space left? We're not running out of ideas. There's lots of design space out there. One of the things that is most intriguing to me is this idea that was brought up by Brofak over on Magic Salvation of having level up lands that could do a lot more in the deck. Lands are one of the more boring things in the game. I like where Dryad Arbor went. I think there's a lot of opportunities to do cool things with land. The other area that really intrigues me is how do you give your opponent very difficult choices? The Punisher mechanic was an attempt at this, but cards like Fact or Fiction are great. When your opponent has to make a difficult decision where they really need to ponder it for a few seconds to even a minute, that is an incredible thing going on in Magic. And I would like to see more attempts to play on individuals' psyche in giving them difficult choices to respond to. What else do you think may be banned or unbanned in Modern? I honestly think that Bloodbraid Elf could be unbanned. The issue with Jund was not the elf. It was Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman is a powerful, powerful card in Vintage and in Legacy. Without Deathrite Shaman, we could see Bloodbraid Elf come back. Punishing Fire is another one that I don't think is overpowered. There are lots of ways to interact with the graveyard. There are lots of ways to interact with land. The environment is actually pretty quick. I don't believe that Punishing Fire would destroy the environment if it was brought back. For cards to ban, Splinter Twin is up there on the list. I don't think it's too powerful, but it's not the type of game win that I really like to see. That combo out in a single turn is pretty crazy. Siege Rhino, I don't think actually needs to be banned. There are lots of ways around it. I'm curious to see how the next two Modern seasons go as the pros really take a hack at beating Siege Rhino. Serum Visions is probably one of the few cards that I think should be banned in Modern currently. Every deck that I see Serum Visions in is usually degraded in some way. It's really just a combo enabler. Yes, there might be an edge case of a Delver deck out there, but when a card appears in a lot of different lists, I think this really needs to be an effect that's moved to the 2 mana area instead of 1 mana, especially if you're not going to have Daze or Force of Will or Mental Misstep in the environment. It's very difficult to deal with someone crafting their hand. A good combo player can turn Serum Vision into a winning combo very quickly. Is Narset, the Planeswalker, Modern or Legacy playable? Unfortunately, no. Please, somebody prove me wrong. It might show up as a one of in some deck lists in the next few weeks, but that's because the other 59 cards are great. At the 4 mana spot in Legacy, you really have to compete with Jace the Mind Sculptor, and Jace can protect himself. The unsummon ability should not be underestimated. It is amazing. Narset doesn't really have a way to protect herself. Also, getting one card is much worse than brainstorming. Not Legacy playable. Is she Modern playable? In that same spot, Kerninos is a much better card. Yes, it costs one more, but I don't think she's even close to Kerninos for power level. I look forward to seeing people brew with her, but I haven't been able to make her work yet. What is the future of Legacy with dual lands on the reserve list? It's going to be the number 3 competitive format as long as Star City Games continues to support it. People love Legacy. I really, really, really enjoy Legacy. It is a complex, interesting format with some great players, but it's really freaking expensive. It's over doubled in price in the last 2 years, and that really limits the lifespan of the format and the ability for it to grow. Right now, Modern is growing much faster than Legacy. The only reason Legacy is doing really well is Star City Games is giving away $5,000 to $10,000 on weekends to people playing Legacy. If Star City Games abandons the Legacy format, we're going to see it as a once or twice a year GP format with a cult following, but it's not going to be the mainstream, amazing, vibrant community that it has now. Long term, I'm going to have to switch to Modern for that competitive environment because that's where all of the new deck brewers are going. Modern is a much more accessible format. What will this mean for the price of the cards in Legacy? They're not going to drop. These are very, very popular cards in EDH, in cubes, in Legacy, and in Vintage. The lack of printing on these is going to keep the price high. I don't think SCG is ever going to drop the format, or at least not in the next 5 to 10 years, so I'm happy holding on to my Legacy staples and continuing to play the format. Next question. You appear to be an EDH and Legacy player with an appetite for financial speculation. Why is it that you don't play Standard? Are the older classic formats more appealing in a certain way? Are you tired of the race for the newest card or the ever-shifting meta? It's really about the depth of skill in playing Legacy. There's so much going on. Stifle, Abrupt Decay, Cobble Therapy. There's very skill-intensive, interesting cards and interesting interaction. In Standard, I often don't feel like there's as many choices, and building one of the top 2 or 3 decks tends to give you much better results regardless of skill. Now, with that said, Standard is a very strong format, and it is getting better. Wizards is designing Standard in a way that it's getting more depth to it. The other issue, though, is the cost. From a financial speculation perspective, Standard is day trading where you have a huge risk of loss when cards go out of favor. Legacy, EDH, Eternal formats, your long-term reward financially is much higher. Additionally, if you buy a Legacy or a Modern deck, even if a card is banned out of it, usually the other 56 cards still have a significant amount of value. When your Standard deck rotates out, it's worth almost nothing. So from a long-term cost perspective, the Eternal formats are actually much less expensive than Standard, which has a lower cost to get in initially. What is the future of the new Tiny Leader format? Tiny Leaders is an extremely popular format. It has gained a lot of recognition from individuals who had never heard about it even a year ago. First, because Wizards has definitely talked about it recently. Gavin Verhey's article is very good on it. Several different YouTubers in the community have also put forward the format. People want an eternal competitive format that is less expensive to get into than Legacy and has less net decks. And Tiny Leaders right now is that format. If you want to play something interesting where you can really brew, I would recommend giving the format a try. I'm going to put together a deck and play it myself. This is the type of question I might not answer if it had just been from a fan, but it came from a patron, and I think it deserves an answer. We are all fans of and adore Wedge, the mana source. What sort of benefits do you speculate he gets for always supporting Wizards and literally being excited about everything? Mana Source is one of my absolute favorite channels. I've definitely promoted them, and I comment regularly on their videos. I do think that being extremely positive has the benefits that Wizards is willing to get behind you. His most recent spoiler, Damnable Pact, is a great example of that. I wouldn't be surprised to see Wedge as a possible candidate for being invited to the Community Cup in the next year or two. Do I think there's any other benefits? No. Being positive overall has benefited the community generally. Wedge has used the mana source to promote other YouTube channels and to really spread Magic overall. So I appreciate what he's doing. I think it might be cool to follow up on the female MTG video you made a while back, Women in Magic. I hear that Melissa DeTora is working at R&D in WotC, and maybe she'd be down for an interview. I think there's two different questions here. First, I will definitely do a follow-up to the Women in Magic video at some point. It is one of the top 20 videos that I've put out. Second, I have seen Melissa out at some of the Friday Night Magic stuff that Mox Boarding House has been doing, and I would be happy to approach her for an interview. I think she's got a lot to contribute to the community, and I would pretty much leave the topic that she's willing to talk about open to her. I think she's a very strong Magic player with a lot that we could learn from her. Who are your favorite commanders? Can we expect an EDH deck tech in the near future? These are my top 5 favorite commanders currently. Scion was my first 5-color deck that I really liked. I tried Child of Alara before that, but Scion was just so much fun. Yeva is my current favorite deck overall. 8.5 Tails, I really like. Angus, I'm trying to make him amazing, and Sig is really my competitive, kind of mean, spiky deck. Will we see an EDH deck tech in the near future? Yes, I hope to have it out by the end of the month. I'm going to be doing an Angus Mackenzie deck tech. What are your thoughts on the future of the best 2-mana creatures? Well, there's a lot of them out here. The 4 or 5 that were listed in the question should also be looked at in regards to other 2-mana amazing creatures from the past. Tarmogoyf, Stoneforge Mystic, Snapcaster Mage, Thalia, and Young Pyro are incredible cards, along with Dark Confidant. Dark Confidant, though, let's talk about him for a second. He has started to fall out of favor. The modern format has definitely sped up, and less people are taking damage from their cards in favor of using Snapcaster Mage to flash things back. Thalia now wasn't listed as one of the top 2 casters, and I think she should be. She shuts down a lot of decks. She makes people play fair. She is an incredibly powerful creature. Young Pyro is making waves in Legacy and in Vintage. I really like this card. The more cantrips or 1 and 2 casting cost spells that feed into Young Pyro, the better he's going to get. He's only going to get better over time. Stoneforge Mystic is a super popular long-term card with casual players, so the fact that she is banned in Modern hasn't really affected her price long-term. I see her just continuing to go up in value over time. Now, Tarmogoyf is the most interesting one. From a financial perspective, I'm going to talk about him a little bit later. He has really set the bar for what a vanilla creature should look like. And if vanilla creatures can't compete with Tarmogoyf at the 2 casting cost spot, they're not going to be tournament playable. On this side, I've also added a few other cards that people should take a look at the 2 casting cost area. Containment Priest, Baleful Strix, Scavenging Ooze, and Crystalline Sliver are my 4 favorites here. I think all 4 of them are underplayed in their environments and are incredible creatures. In Death and Taxes versus Bug Delver in Legacy, let's say you go first, drop a Plains and an Aethervire. Opponent drops Underground Sea and Deathrite. If you have Swords and Wasteland, would you waste their Sea and Swords their Deathrite? Hell yes. Mana Denial is one of the best ways for Death and Taxes to win, and Deathrite is a 1 casting cost planeswalker. I would be very happy to waste that Underground and Swords the Deathrite. I like this type of question too. It's a play question based on Legacy. Wonderful questions. Boxers or briefs? Normally I don't answer non-Magic questions, but you should be able to answer this one for yourself. MTG Lion asks, What is the best trade you ever did and your worst trade ever? Ooh, that's a really tough question. I haven't kept track of all of my trades recently at PAX, though. I did trade for a very nice condition Lotus. I was happy with the trade. Some people thought I was insane for the trade. I put a significant majority of my trades up on Instagram. So if you want to follow me over at Sartorus on Instagram, you'll see those trades. Worst trade. Whew. I liked Cloudfin Raptor. I liked Cloudfin Raptor a lot. Over a series of about 2 weeks, I might have traded for a lot of foil Cloudfin Raptors. That was a huge mistake. They have no value at this point whatsoever. Everybody makes mistakes in trades. You have to learn from them. What my big mistake with Cloudfin Raptor was looking at the potential of an ideal draw for him, and in a bad draw, he's just terrible. Do you think that a set without an eternal format playable card can still be successful? And this question really should be divided into two parts. Number one, can it be financially successful? Number two, can it be fun to play? Yes, it can clearly be fun to play. You can put together a really good draft format. You can put together a really exciting format for new players. But for there to be long-term financial value, it needs to have something that helps make waves in Eternal or EDH. The best examples of this are things like Deathrite Shaman or Abrupt Decay. Those are the type of cards that 5 or 6 years from now are going to push those pack prices significantly up as people look for foils of them. I think Theros did a nice balancing though, and it had the gods, which were really fun, appealed to a casual crowd, and it also had Thoughtseize in it, and a great eternal staple that helps with the pack prices overall and helps get more eternal cards into the format. What is the best way to build a collection on a budget? Coming from somebody who buys singles that really doesn't have a bunch of extra cards. Well, there's two real philosophies here. One of them is to pick up packs and put the extra cards into your binder. I don't recommend that, with the only exception really being Modern Masters. Modern Masters has so many cards that people are going to be going after the first few weeks that it comes out. You may be able to trade into other great stuff depending on what you get out of the packs. Instead, I suggest picking up the staples that you know are good for years to come, even if you're not playing them. Putting them in your trade binder, make sure that you're asking a reasonable price or what you think they're going to be worth a little bit in the future, so you don't just trade out of things that are going up. But singles is really the way to do it. Try to pick up those singles that have eternal value right after they rotate out of standard. Snapcaster Mage is a great example. He dropped down to about $15 right after he rotated out because the standard players were dropping him, and eternal players had a great opportunity to pick him up. Now he's a $50 card. The same thing will likely happen with Tassiger. Right now, Dak Faden is starting to go up. Look for those cards with long-term value when they start to hit a low point. Don't pick them up right after they come out because there's too much excitement around them. Wait till the market is flooded and then pick them up. If Noble Hierarch gets a reprint in Modern Masters 2, what will its price be? Great question. This is one I get asked all the time. A lot of people look at my Noble Hierarchs. They tell me I need to trade them right away, and then they offer me something obscenely low on them because they want them to play. Well, this is the long-term curve. Yes, it's going to drop a little bit, but then it's going to go back up. I think this card will be reprinted. I think it could go down as low as the $40, $45 range, but long-term, I see it being up there at the $70, $80 or higher range because it's a wonderful card in many different decks. Do you think it's possible for Tarmogoyf to drop below $150? Would you say that's the best case scenario floor for it? I think it could definitely drop a bit below 150. Why? Besides the sell price, I look at the buy prices on different sites. So let's take two cards, Tarmogoyf and Tundra, both of which are extremely popular at about $200. Right now, Card Kingdom has Tundra at a $115 buy. Tarmogoyf is not on their buy list. Star City Games has Tarmogoyf at a $100 buy. The difference between these two cards is lots of people are selling Tarmogoyfs right now, and some of the major stores are not even buying them or buying them at a significant discount from where you would expect them to buy. Depending on how many people liquidate, this could go down below 150. Will it stay below 150 long term? No, 6 to 8 months after Modern Masters 2 comes out, it will be back up to where it is today. But while it's in that low point is when you should be picking them up. What is the best budget replacement for Tarmogoyf? This is a tough question. What I really like about this question, though, is that 3 people responded with their own ideas. And that's what's great about YouTube, is the community and the willingness for other people to chime in. These are my 3 favorite replacements for Tarmogoyf right now. Scavenging Ooze can be really good depending on the deck, but it's a little bit slower, so you've got to have a controlling deck. Doran can be really powerful. I also like the Grunt here because it really fights Tarmogoyf by shrinking the Tarmogoyf with the cumulative upkeep. You need to figure out what axis you're attacking on and find the right answer. If you're in an aggro deck, early on, the Grunt can be great. If you're a control deck, Scavenging Ooze is the long-term better answer. Do you think Monastery Mentor Control is a good archetype in Vintage? It's good, but not broken. Dave Lichterman won the Friday Night Magic Vintage this last week over at Mox Boarding House with a really interesting Monastery Mentor deck. I'll drop a link in here and I may do a separate video about it. Do I think that Control is the right way to play Monastery Mentor? No, I think of it more as a combo deck that's very resilient to creatures and that wins with a creature. I think if you want to go the hardcore control routes, there's better options than the Mentor. The style of play with the Mentor, though, really includes things like Gush and multiple spells in a turn to where you're winning and looking at a lot of cards in a very interesting way. Have you ever played the Emperor format? What do you think of it, and how does it compare to Commander games? In this 3v3 format, you go after a single player on the other side, but you have to go through their generals. It's a very different format than Commander. Commander is very political because you need to not look like a threat, you need to put together alliances, it has this social aspect. Emperor is very competitive. You don't have that political aspect, that conversation back and forth over who you should be attacking. I think for a multiplayer format that is on the more competitive side, it's a well-designed format. It's not what I'm usually looking for out of a group game. Out of a group game, I really am there to play with the social aspects of the game. I prefer ETH much more. Will you do more top 10s? Also, I have a suggestion. Top 10 Commander block list. So out blocks that are great for Commander. This concept to cure seems really good for it. Hell yes, I'm going to do more top 10 lists. Top 10 lists is what really got me started into the channel, and I'm looking at revisiting my first 10 lists and really improving upon them, both in production quality and in the number of cards. I'm probably going to turn them into top 20 lists the way that I recently did with 20 amazing artifacts. 10 top cards and then 10 budget cards that I really think are underplayed in the format. The block list idea is interesting. Some of the blocks are really bad for Commander, some are great, but Cons was clearly designed with EDH players in mind, especially the new Dragons. With the announcement of a return to Zendikar, what mechanics, creatures, would you like to see returned or expanded upon? I'm personally looking forward to more Eldrazi, and it might be interesting to see Landfall make a return, same with Ally. I'm happy to see Landfall back. I liked Landfall. I did a lot of drafting of Zendikar, mostly for the full art lands. Rise of Eldrazi was one of the more popular sets with casual players. I would like to see Eldrazi come back. A lot of people don't like Eldrazi. I haven't mentioned Ally because I didn't like Ally. Did not care for it at all as a mechanic. I hope they bring back something new instead of Ally, or they significantly improve Ally. So yes to Landfall, no to Ally. Hopefully we see some Eldrazi. Are you worried about Magic counterfeits? Yes, definitely. First, I haven't talked about counterfeits much on the channel. I may do that soon. One of the local stores here was hit pretty hard with some beta counterfeits. And counterfeits can be really tough for people to spot if you don't know what you're doing. Chase Anders over at Star City Games has a great article going over counterfeits. It was from the premium side, but it's now available to anybody to read. I definitely recommend checking that out. MTG Lion has been one of the YouTubers who talks about this the most. Without really teaching people how to spot counterfeits, it can be really difficult to give a good solution. I'm glad that Wizards has finally upgraded the cards so that they're a little bit tougher to counterfeit. I'm not sure what the long-term solution is. You really should go through a dealer that you trust, somewhere like Card Kingdom, Star City Games, Channel Firewall, where they have professional graders who look at the cards, and if you run into any problems with the cards, they're really backed to where they'll be fixed. I have never gotten a counterfeit through I've never gotten a counterfeit card through a major retailer like that, and I think it's the best way to really protect yourself is by finding someone with that great reputation who's willing to stand behind it. My personal choice is Card Kingdom. What is your favorite guild? Of course, I'm a law-abiding citizen who stands behind Azorius. If you like the Ask Anything, I'll be doing another one at 10,000 subscribers. If you want to guarantee that your questions get asked, become a patron to the channel over at Patreon/Mythic. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. It's been a lot of fun. Further videos this week. We've got speculation video coming up. We've got the Bant Commander video. We have an altered art video featuring some cards from a fan of the channel. Wow, this question is really tough. I'm going to have to go back and edit this.